welcome back to the channel. We are going through some more in-depth glutes and hammy exercises. We're going to start with RDLs and Jess is going to take us through it.
I reckon something I see all the time with these is the chest continuing to drop once the glutes have already finished in their back position. So here, obviously, perfect hinge, hips back, chest comes down. You tend to see the fuck up when the chest continues dropping, and yeah, it turns into like a reach. It's almost like, I like to cue like short arms, so like keeping that armpit squeezed. They've copped it over the years. So if you don't need to use straps when you're RDLing, it's not that you've got good grip, it's you've got weak as fuck hamstrings. So when we're chucking on our straps, you want the tail to go through your thumb and your index finger. So pointing outwards. So there, pointing out, there, pointing out. And if you don't stuff it up at least 3 times when you're putting them on. So when you come to the barbell, you want your hand to go over the bar and the gap. So once you wrap it around, it just goes through the gap where your thumb and your index finger are anyway. So just tighten as much as you need. Just make sure your hands are like actually at the right width on the RDL though. I personally go thumb over as well. I don't wrap my thumb under.
A great cue for stability as well. As you lower the weight coming into that hinge, drive through that midfoot.
And don't look at yourself in the mirror.
How bad is it when you see someone trying to RDL and they keep looking to the side?
Or their chin's up and they're like, my back hurts. So when you approach the bar, what are you thinking with grip width?
So typically when I come to the bar to set up, I'll go just outside of my legs.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
No, I see too many people go a little bit too wide and almost accident, because they go based on the knurling on the bar and then they turn it into a snatch grip and make it harder on their upper back than necessary.
Yeah. So the moment I touch the bar, I'm thinking about already how I'm creating tension through my body. Lats are on, cores engaged. I'm gripped strong through the ground.
Nice, still keeping it tight through those lats as well. 8. At least 2 more. Schley. Good job. Being one of your bigger compound movements, like obviously there are different types of failure and we talk about that a lot, but when it comes to RDLs like that, there are very, very rarely will you fail based off the weight where you won't be able to just pick it up from the bottom. It's usually like a technique breakdown from the top.
From the top, easily.
Literally. So if you can't keep everything on and tight, sometimes when I do my RDLs, I'll use a belt as well, anything to help you brace better. Obviously, depending on what your goal is, if you need that external support like straps and a belt, use it. If it's gonna make you push more load, better RIR, and not falter, like you're only as strong as your weakest link, and if you can't brace your core when you do it, but a belt helps you, then fucking use a belt. Like there's no need for an ego.
So another common mistake is people thinking a straight back means you physically have to be straight in the RDL movement. A hip dominant, hip hinge movement, your hips need to come back, right? So think chest over toes, pushing your hips back. And if those are stacked, naturally you're gonna get that neutral position for your spine anyway, as opposed to trying to come back a little bit and then squat an RDL.
My short gal over here, every time we train together, we're always adapting something to make sure Mimi's feet can fit. Obviously these machines, there's only so much you can adjust. In this one, you can't really adjust the height much. Also, just take your time when you're setting up on a new piece of equipment, just so you get the most out of it. Do like a light feeder set and make sure you make sure you get it right.
So for Jess to get the most out of this exercise, I want strong pressure through her legs as well as her shoulder blades into the pads. This is going to allow her to come into a nice hinge at the bottom and then driving up for hip extension. Notice that her rib cage and her hips are stacked the entire time. To facilitate that, her chin's going to be tucked forwards.
Something that I always see when people, like as soon as there's a bit of like pressure at their hips, they start letting their hips drop first.
Yeah.
And that rib cage just opens up. So something like a couple cues that I like to use is like, close your rib cage, keep your chin tucked, and like a seesaw, when your hips drop, your chest comes forward. When your hips go up, your chest goes back. And I find that like that takes that lower back element out of it.
Yes.
When you're setting up a 45 degree, you want your hip crease to be just over the top of the hip pad. So here, I'm able to go all the way down, and that's like my perfect height, whereas it is not her perfect height. So obviously you want to do it as safe as possible, using weight plates in this situation where they're going to be locked in. I think that'll be fine if you keep your feet close. Something we're looking for here, so keeping our feet roughly hip width apart, and I find toes pointed down on this absolutely fires my glutes the fuck up, but everyone might be a little bit different. Now we don't want to, because it's like a real glute and hammy focus session, we're not trying to make this a full back extension. So Mim's going to squeeze her glutes from the bottom and only come as high as her glutes allow. So you can see that she's not engaging her lower back. Can you straighten out your back and give me a full back extension? So that would be an example where your back's doing a lot of the work. Not wrong, just we're not training our lower back, we're training our glutes. So jump down, squeeze glutes from the bottom, and still control it on the way down. Don't completely lose the rep and just drop. That hunch through the upper back just allows you to keep it in your glutes and not engage your back. I like to use the analogy of like zipping up your glutes from the bottom. So just thinking that you're squeezing every fiber on the way up. Something I'm really guilty of when I do these is when I get tired, it's missing that last centimeter or so of hip thrust. So I think it's keep your, it's initiate from your glutes, not from your chest, but where your chest ends up isn't what we're focused on. It's the fully pushing your hips into the pad. Like there's no right or wrong way. You see some people holding plates lower, holding dumbbells, holding a weight plate across their chest.
Hip extension machines that I have access to, this metal piece is actually a lot higher and elevated off. And so it's not got the extra, and that's already, that bar's already got a substantial amount of space for me to tap underneath and put my elbows under. But because this is so low, like you said, 2 dumbbells being strapped up into it.
Zercher grouping, I wouldn't be able to like load a heap of weight if I was training by myself, because like I wouldn't be able to do it. But the easy bar is like a great alternative if you've got someone there to help load it on for you. But so
how you load it and the range that you can take it to is so dependent on the machine that's available to you at the gym. Like the one that I have access to, it's like got the extra metal elevation at the top, so loading on a barbell like this is going to be super easy. But because I'm a bit more shortened in that position, I can actually hit enough range to work through the entire glutes, hamstrings. This is a lot higher up to what I have access to, and so holding something like a dumbbell or a bumper plate works too.
So personally, this is my favorite variation, but I wouldn't really do it on this. It really inhibits my ability to get a full range here. So on this 45, it's not ideal. If it was a little bit higher, I would do it. I reckon the go-to for this one would be hugging a weight plate. Grab a weight plate. If I was setting this up, get everything sorted on your lower body first. Get it up, keep it nice and close to your body so your arms have to do the least amount of work here, and then just aim to still initiate from those glutes and get that full lockout at the top. So this is like the perfect reminder here that we don't want movement through here, we only want the movement through the glutes. So we're not trying to deliberately like crunch forward and throw it back, but keeping it nice and tight there. That's not moving at all. The hinge point's the only thing doing the work. I feel like with the leg curl, it's when people get it's the most daunting because there's so many moving parts. So first thing you want to do is make sure your point of movement, so your knee is in line with the axis, and your knee caps to be off the bench, because it doesn't need to be any more uncomfortable than lying leg curls already are. From here, how's that for height?
Might go one shorter.
One shorter. This is like You want it to be as far down as comfortable. So usually at the back of your Achilles is best there. Now, when it comes to your upper body to support you, you really want to pull, and Mimi's lats are just, you really want to be holding on and pulling your shoulders down. So really stabilizing your upper body, pushing your hips into the pads and going from there. So things we're looking for, we don't want a lot of lower back movement. I feel like as it goes on, there may be a little bit, but keeping those glutes on, pushing those quads in, and dragging your heels over to your glutes. I reckon there's like 3 main points you see these like fuck up. One is like the yeeting of the legs and then the lower back coming into play. Hips lifting from the bench is the best way to describe it, or arse going up in the air, getting a real lower back pump there. The other one is not getting tight enough through your upper body, shifting through your upper body and like almost rocking up and down the bench. So you're just trying to lock yourself in as best as possible.
Full seated leg curl, let's get similar vibes. This pad is on that lower half of your calves, sits quite comfortably. And then this is gonna hold you nice and stable in the machine, create enough force through the movement. Not on your knee, it's not gonna like it, so just above. And what you're gonna do is aim for your heels and drive it underneath your hips. Now Jess is going quite crazy with this, but as fatigue kicks in, she's pushing it closer to failure. She needs to lock the fuck in, otherwise her hips are gonna shoot up. She's gonna be rocking in the chair.
Always see it on social media. Do you want me like leaning back, or what's the go with like getting the most stretch out of your hamstring first?
No one's gonna be able to quantify the difference between that setup and the forward lean. I think more people are trying to forward lean to get even more of a stretch in the lengthened position of the hamstring here. This exercise is already doing that, and I feel like the machine is designed in a way to stabilize yourself with your hips back. I've tried the seated forward position. I don't feel as stable, so I'm gonna go and say 99% of the people are just gonna benefit from using the machine the way it should. Maybe some people can get a better stretch in it leaning forward. Like I said, no one's quantified it yet, so I think just go with what
Lock yourself in
the way the machine's designed.
Yeah. That's like when it gets hard, being able to like push against it and really make sure your hips aren't shifting up and arching back.
Yeah, I think it's probably just an overemphasis on trying to stretch the muscle, which is obviously what's happening now over the last couple of years with all the research data. So people are going to want to try and get even more muscle length under tension.
Yeah.
But like I said, we won't have the information yet on how effective that is. So just go with like how the machine's designed.
Yeah.
It's always going to be the best place to start.
Thank you.
Is it even like, if you're gripping it to produce more force, it's like over time, how do you quantify that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like it's promoting bad movement. Like your spine is like heavily flexed down the bottom there.
I've never done it.
I just think like it's not promoting like a good movement posture. So I would just not be advocating that for anybody to be like overly flexed at the hip and then just like trying to flex through the knee. Like if you sit in the machine, like your spine is straight and then you can just flex through the knee. Like it's just promoting a much better lifting posture.
Yeah. For me, it's just making sure I like keep my back flat and like when it gets hard, not overarching and just doing everything I can. Question we get asked all the time, super common. What is the difference between the seated leg curl and the lying leg curl? So they're not exactly interchangeable. So the seated leg curl is gonna put more pressure on the hamstring in the lengthened position. That's where the most amount of load. So as it's lengthening, and less when it's in the shortened position. It's the exact opposite when you're doing the lying leg curl. So in the lengthened position, it's not under a lot of load. As you curl and you're right at the top, that's when it's under the most amount of tension. So opposite strength curves. You also want to have something like your hinge variation in as well. So the top of your hamstring, so like that glute ham tie-in, when your hips are extending through, so the full stretch and the extension. So between the three of them, you're hitting every area of the hammy that you need to. I'm a powerlifter, so I always have barbell deadlifts, almost always have barbell deadlifts in my program. Because the moment arm on a barbell RDL is so long, it just can put so much pressure on my lower back if I'm doing heavy hinge variations twice a week. So like, I got my RDL up to 130 for 8. Like, it's fatiguing as shit.
And well, that's the only other thing, right? Because you can only load the barbell so much before your grip's gonna start giving away. And so as a variation to load it, it's gonna be less taxing on your lower back as well. Another really cool variation that you would typically see and that we would program for our clients is a B stance RDL. Isolate that one side of the hip, still working through both one at a time.
I think like even on the other end of the spectrum as well, it's really good, like even if someone's not fully comfortable with the barbell RDL because they're not strong enough, like 20 kilos still feels heavy. It's nice to still be able to go grab like
Progress it up.
a 5 or a 7 kilo dumbbell and still like overload is overload. Like whatever you need to do to start. One thing that is a little bit harder with dumbbell RDLs is because your hands have free range of movement, you really want to make sure you're squeezing those armpits and not letting those dumbbells get away from you. So here Mim's doing her B stance variation, slight angle of her body, really pushing through that glute, really lengthening that glute. I think if you're someone that gets lower back pain in an RDL, something that I'd really advise with a B stance RDL is really make sure you're bending that front leg. It's so much easier to keep the hip up high in that, so really make sure you're getting that knee bend. In saying that, so not only do I see people's like arms move around too much in a dumbbell RDL, you want to make sure that you're not taking the main load off the glute and hamstring. So we want to think back and up with soft knees. You can't see my knees, but you want to think back and up and not turn it into a quad movement by going back and down and like relieving that tension. Realistically, you want to think pushing back, 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 back. I like to think until it feels like my toes are going to lift up, but they're firmly gripped into the floor. So chin tucked, hips pushing as far back as possible. From the bottom, squeeze those glutes, drive them through. It matters less about locking out those knees and bending those knees.
You'll notice even as Jess is doing that, her knee stays stacked over her ankles the entire time. From the moment she hinges back and on the way back up, it doesn't move. It doesn't come out of that position. The moment you see this move forward, that's when your quads are gonna take over and it's gonna be quite nasty on your back.
Thanks for tuning in. If it's your first time here, welcome to the party, you're welcome. If you're a repeat offender, you better be subscribed to this. We have new videos coming all the time for everything training and nutrition. So see you next time.